So essentially, Faiths for Change is an environmental charity. We're rooted in all world faiths, understanding traditions and values of caring for the earth as one. So that's all inhabitants, including us, and recognizing the interdependence of all of our life systems, including those that we know nothing about and may never know nothing about. And that's really where we come from. Our work is very much about collaboration and partnership. We can't do what we do without that. And I would say our vision really is about working with others to create a truly, deeply just, sound society where all flourish. And that goes well beyond humans. We became an environmental charity in 2010, starting life as an environmental project within the Diocese of Liverpool, founded by Bishop James Jones and other faith leaders working with environmental organisations. So it was a kind of collaborative approach from the beginning. And the idea really came out of James's work with Kensington New Deal for Communities, and essentially informed by that, when he was going around talking to different communities and feeling like, particularly where there was huge amounts of capital investment, regeneration projects that involved large-scale building and clearance and stuff, and really hearing from people that the way they express their needs for an environment in which to flourish was very much in organic terms, and was in people-friendly terms and place-friendly terms, and involved things like feeling secure and safe and clean and all sorts of things relating to those. Whereas when he was talking to kind of developers and large-scale investors, it was very much more of a mechanistic language, units and beneficiaries and stuff that kind of didn't necessarily make sense in ordinary conversation. So the idea really for the work grew from there, with the idea that faith communities could be a catalyst for partnership working in local communities, but that the work would be co-created and developed and led by and in partnership with local people, but seeking to work in partners with organisations from all sectors. So not purely faith, but with a recognition that in all local communities, there are faith communities that, yeah, some stronger than others, and in some areas, obviously, many different faith communities and different denominations, perhaps, of the Christian church, but that they're anchor organisations, quite often the last organisation to leave an area, particularly in times of financial stress and stuff, and you know, the traditions and commitments really to a socially just and sustainable world, and the moral imperative that they have to deliver that. So we are a charity, became a charity in 2010. We don't have any core funding. So all of the work that we do is either funded through chargeable services, we have a small number of those, or successful funding bids. And as a result, I like to think that we're quite resourceful. Our turnover is around about 100,000 a year, so it's not huge by any stretch of the imagination. But every now and again, I kind of catch myself reading about what we do, and I think, gosh, how do we do all that with so little? And I would say that actually a lot of it is down to goodwill, and which is a crucial kind of ingredient in any work, whatever that involves. So I'll just share with you, I've kind of put together, I found these little timeliney things by accident when I was messing around with PowerPoint, and so I've kind of kept them. We've got 3 core areas of work, and that's land, faith and climate, and creative. All relate to environmental and well-being, and again, that I would include within that kind of people well-being, but you know, interdependent with the well-being of our environments, our neighbourhoods, and kind of all other inhabitants. So in terms of land, you'll see there we've got a number of ongoing programmes. And we've been working with St Michael's Catholic Primary in Kensington for 10 years now, and we deliver a kind of weekly gardening group with all year groups. The school decide that does involve food growing, but it also involves just time in the garden, listening, watching, being, just enjoying being outside. And we run that from the end of February, so just after half term, to the end of October half term. So we're pretty much out there, and we do some work there in the summer holidays, just to kind of maintain beds. But the food that's grown is either used in the school kitchen, or the children that are taking part take it home. We work with the Adelaide House Women's Approved Premises, so that's a Ministry of Justice programme in Liverpool, and we work with women there again on a weekly basis, but that's year round. We've been working there a long time, so they're part of our kind of chargeable services, if you like. So we have kind of ongoing service level agreements. With the other areas, the other gardens, I haven't included all of the short-term projects here because it could just be kind of too long and tedious, to be honest with you, because to date, since 2010, we've delivered 184 different funded projects, some of which are really short-term and some of which are long-term. So what I've done is just included some of those ongoing gardens that we're working with. I have to say, we don't have any assets of our own apart from a shipping container that we store all sorts of stuff that other people generally don't want, along with tools and pots and pans and stuff like that. So none of the land-based projects that we work on belong to us. We have a long-term partnership with St Michael's in the City Church, just off the back of Liverpool 1, so very close to the city centre. And we've been working with the church since 2018. And you'll see a picture in a minute, just a snapshot of one of the groups there. We're there 2.5 days a week, a number of different grant funds for different elements of keeping a community garden project running. And I would say that, you know, the essence of our success to date is, I would say, the willingness and ability to build on things based on the ideas that we shape with the people that come and work alongside us, and that's crucial. One of those, I would say, most recently at St Michael's in the City, an area of the garden that was overgrown, that we weren't really using for anything at all. We do have wild areas, but it become a bit of a dumping ground for excess materials. A few of the older ladies coming had wanted to create an area where they could just sit and have a cup of tea and chill out. And so the tea garden was born. So working with a couple of our team, some of our trustees, that project really took on a shape of its own, from the design right the way through to building the benches to sit in the tea garden, planting the herbs for the teas, and then experimenting with it with a dehydrator. So ideas can come from within, but quite often they come from within a wider group of people that we're working with. So there's a few other gardens on there that are ongoing. So we've been working for the last couple of years with the LaSalle Hotel School Kitchen Garden, which is up in Croxteth. So they're an independent organisation seeking to create a training space for young people wanting to go into hospitality and catering. And that's in the former Brothers House, adjacent to the LaSalle Academy. And so the first stage of that project was to create a kitchen garden based on a permaculture design. So we've worked with them to realise that and to help that, to keep that running. So we're there on a Monday doing a kind of health and wellbeing group, which is really popular and is quite often a gateway to kind of other activities on site. You know, it's finding kind of ways for people to engage and perhaps dip their toe in the water a little bit and get a feel for, is this right for me? Does it feel safe? do I want to keep going? What do I bring? What do I gain? Those kind of things. And we find that quite often, having done that and met people where they are, you know, if people just want to come and have a cup of tea, they can sit and have a cup of tea. That's gardening. You're in the garden, you're having a cup of tea. It's still gardening. And we don't do heavy digging. We pretty much no dig other than removing things we need to with a trowel. A newer garden for us. We're working with the City Council in Liverpool to revive an old garden allotment site that's lain kind of, nothing's really been done to it for about 20 years, which is great, because it means we can be really sensitive to the needs of the space, recognising that we're there as temporary residents, whereas there are other residents that have been there for a lot longer than us, and it's their home. But that's kind of gradually and slowly taking shape, and that's in Knotty Ash, just off the Queen's Drive. With all of the regular gardens, all of the ongoing projects, we are there weekly. And there's a link on our website, a what's on page, so people can kind of get a map of where we are when we're there, and they can just turn up. Everything is fully funded. We cover bus fares, we provide food, and some of that food is harvested from those gardens. And in some of the projects, we cook together, we eat together, and people take food home. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. And so I wanted to share this picture, not least because this was a very recent picture. These young people were on as part of their learning to ride bikes, their cycle of life. So this was a local Sustrans project up in L8, and they contacted us to say, can we come down to the garden? We're in Liverpool 1. As part of our kind of, we're off on a mission, we're going camping, we want to do some activities en route, so we welcome them with open arms. Anybody that wants to come and do gardening is more than welcome, and it's lovely to have kind of all ages, different cultures and backgrounds, and it reflects the diversity, particularly of this area. And so they came and they sowed many chard, spinach and kohlrabi and beetroot seeds. Fast forward to this week, we had a group from Crisis, the drug and alcohol charity, including staff and volunteers, had 10 people working in the garden for 2 hours, planting out the results of the seed sowing. And we've probably got about 80 chard plants. So, you know, we're hoping for a bumper harvest over winter. One of the things that we do at St Michael's in the City, the Roots in the City Partnership Garden, is we grow food for one of the other churches within the parish for the food bank. So we grow food for the St Bride's food bank, run by another charity called Micah. And that goes, we harvest on a Thursday morning, it's taken away on a Thursday afternoon. So our creative work tends to focus really around kind of textile reuse, not least because actually textiles lend themselves to all sorts of things, from the very obvious how to repair and refashion to, you know, some quite creative things, like a project here that we did way back in time called So Many Trees, making tree banners with 30 odd community groups, from knit and natter to disability awareness groups, right the way across the city region. And we had a huge exhibition that involved the Catholic Cathedral and the Central Library, amongst others, and the Slavery Museum and the Quaker Meeting House actually as well. So, you know, it's a quite, again, I would say, you know, we're kind of led by the people that we're working with to some extent. So ideas kind of come from all quarters, and then we kind of tease out what's viable and how we can do it, what we've already got. And that would include partnerships and other resources, as well as, do we need any money? Where's it going to come from, etc. So I'd say that the other thing with textiles is, one of the reasons why we seek to work around textiles particularly is we all need them. We're all wearing clothes, for instance, but they've got a really high carbon footprint. So 1 kilo of textiles equals 4 kilos of carbon. And they are one of the things, apart from plastics, that do tend to find themselves in the bin in this country. Unfortunately, they also tend to find themselves kind of shipped out to Africa, to particular countries in Africa, where there are some really major sort of social and climate issues as a result of our unwanted clothing. And so those things are very much that level of awareness, bringing into our programs things like the Sustainable Development Goals, workers' rights, and awareness of those kind of social justice issues, as well as the impact on climate. For instance, in Ghana, kind of unwanted textiles, normally from our country, unfortunately, ending up on beaches, being embedded in the sand, washed into the sea, and so on and so forth. It's very much a part of the education of projects that we run through this. And again, very engaging. Things have to be engaging. I think if you're going to, there needs to be an element of fun. And also, I think from our point of view, from our team's point of view, and our charity's point of view, really, you know, a willingness for us to learn too. It's really important that, you know, we don't have all of the answers, and it's good to kind of be open to learning too. So the newest project, and we're just recruiting schools across most of Merseyside for this, the Great Swap Shop. And this is a kind of build on from the Fashion Fix project. So for COP27, there's going to be some mock COP27 conferences. As we did with the Fashion Fix, we had COP26 conferences, and those conferences are schools representing different countries, different interests, and different parts of the kind of supply chain of textile. So that could be right from kind of being a cotton farmer right the way through to a global trader. So they get some real inside understanding, and also kind of build confidence in public speaking and engage with each other. And yeah, I have to say, it's always really inspiring. So our focus this time is very much on school clothing. There is, as some of you may well probably be aware, things like School Jumper Day, World Book Day, all of those things generally require parents or carers to make a purchase. That purchase is a one-off purchase, and then, you know, for whatever reason afterwards, unless it's going to be handed down or worn on, it's got rid of. So even if textiles are reused or recycled, you know, part of the, I think, challenging the kind of status quo, if you like, is to kind of look at our consumption in the first place and be saying, okay, how are we living in harmony with each other and with the rest of nature and the earth, if we're constantly buying stuff and turning over stuff, even if we're passing it on to someone else. We have crazy amounts of stuff that actually most of us don't need. So this is a picture from Fashion Fix. So we worked with 20 odd schools, can't tell you exactly how many, I think it was 26. They all took part in the COP26 conference. Some had additional workshops where they did clothes dyeing using vegetables, tea bags, all sorts of different things. So that was really good fun, and they all really loved doing that. So that was quite interesting. And faith in climate is our third and final kind of core area of work. This is something that, as you can imagine, with kind of our values and roots in kind of multi-faith, it's something we've always done. But I've given you a sort of snapshot of the most recent 4 years, as opposed to way back in 2004, and there is a lot more there as well. Really, I would say there was quite a significant shift. I think we were very active in a number of ways on addressing climate change, working specifically with different faith communities across the Northwest, actually, till about 2009. And then it was like climate change just disappeared completely from from the kind of voluntary agenda, really, in terms of being able to kind of do the work, get the funding to do the work in any kind of meaningful way, not because people didn't care, but I think, you know, huge shifts in, even just down to kind of things like within our country, we had 9 regions. So we were in the northwest, and then we moved to city regions, and we moved to kind of local economic partnerships and things like that. So huge upheaval and lots of change. And obviously the austerity policies, where some of the infrastructure organisations went, changed, etc. So really for us, the kind of being able to get back in any meaningful way on kind of any kind of detailed work with different faith communities, specifically around climate change, really didn't begin again until about 2015. I would say certainly since 2018, it's really picking up speed and big style in the last couple of years. There is a city region faith leaders group, and there are representatives from all of the different world faiths and many of the individual different faith communities. And that's usually hosted by the Bishop of Liverpool, currently hosted by the Bishop of Warrington. So we're currently working with them on a Queen's Green Canopy Legacy project, and they're looking for a land-based project, and so it's a steering group of people from there working with them, and that will involve young people. And we've been working with the Diocese of Liverpool, who currently and have always given us a home very kindly, on their carbon net zero 2030 targets, and our role within that really is the prophetic lead. So it is working directly with churches, but not just within this diocese. It's a recognition, as I'm sure you will all agree here, that even if you've got your own targets, actually just working within is by no means enough, because you end up with like little bits of jigsaw puzzle. So a part of our remit is seeking to work beyond the boundaries of the diocese. So whether that's at strategic level across the city region, or with different community organisations and groups at local level, and really trying to kind of build that understanding and picture, find out what people are doing, but also be able to share the kind of tools and resources and understanding that we've got as well. Just a picture there. Don't have any very exciting pictures from our work with faith communities. They're either people sitting around with cake or a cuppa or whatever. But this was a Year of the Environment 2019 Interfaith Week event, and it was focused on faith and climate. So it felt like, with that in the background, it was a nice picture to share, and it was a really good day. And that was hosted by the Bishop of Liverpool, who's just retired, so that's Paul Bays. So I just wanted to kind of just share our details there with you. And I always like to end with a picture of Kath, who's one of our team. This is actually a potato that was dug up in the St Michael's in the city garden, and it's kind of photographed for prosperity, really, because for me it really sums up what's literally at the heart of our work, and it's love. It's very important that what we do, we share with others, we recognize our connections, and that, you know, none of us is separate from each other and everything else that's living and breathing, but that also we have a responsibility to share what we have and to be generous with that.